wound them, maybe, but.
Right.
But it's
So anybody remember that story about 2 months ago? The 92-year-old guy down in Kentucky.
Yeah.
He had this two-story house where the back of the house had a ground level entrance. These three, I'll call them what I think they are, punks, broke in, and he'd been broken into like 2 or 3 times before. And do you remember this story? Remember this?
Yes.
And he sat in a chair. I think he was sitting in a chair at the top of the stairs when one of these punks came up to the top of the stairs, opened the door, and he put it right through the chest. A 92-year-old guy. And lots of people, I think, in our community say, yeah, go, man. That's okay.
I do. I like to hear those kind of stories. I do.
Because why?
Because there are so many. Well, it probably stems back from my childhood. In high school, I was bullied a lot. And I am really sensitive to people being bullied. And when I see these old ladies and these guys taking advantage of them, and people coming into people's houses and going in their stores and stuff, I just say, go for it.
I've been a carpenter for a long time, and when you work with table saws, see, sometimes if you don't worry about the guards, sometimes you might cut off a finger. If you're in the business of going into somebody else's property to be able to take it, that business requires that you be willing to lose a life. Because you don't care about the person you're invading. Why should they care about you?
The other aspect is, by doing that, you're sending somebody into eternity.
Mm-hmm.
They're going right before the judgment throne of God at that second when you put that bullet through their chest.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember he commented afterward in an interview. He said, "Yeah, I missed his heart by an inch. He wished he'd been a little more accurate."
Now, is that just, that's what, I don't have a problem with him shooting, but,
Yeah.
he's shooting to
With
kill.
that attitude.
He's shooting to kill. He's not shooting to defend himself or protect. Shoot him in the groin. Shoot him in the knee. My wife's always on these TV shows. Why can't they just shoot him in the knee and get out of there?
I think the reason they don't is because they're afraid they can still retaliate somehow.
There were 3, I think.
Well, the local police said no problem, no harm, no foul.
God sends a lot of people into eternity.
Same thing.
Yes, he has.
Remember the guy on Loda?
Gary?
Hawthorne Drive? Yeah. Shot the kid with a 22 or a 20 gauge.
Having followed that story pretty closely and having read the articles about it several times, that old man, not defending what he did and not necessarily agreeing or disagreeing with him, but just a little more information about that situation. He had been broken into several times.
Right.
These same people had broken into his house
Right.
before. He couldn't convince the police department that was happening to him, but he did convince them to install a video camera in his basement. So they were videotaped coming in and breaking through the window.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, and so they had them on videotape. So that was an easy confirmation for what the old man said.
Sure.
And as they came up the stairs, he shouted to them repeatedly that he had
Oh,
a gun,
I didn't hear that.
and he was willing to shoot, and they did not stop.
I did not
They
remember hearing
They
that.
were high on heroin. They were heroin addicts.
Yeah, what are they
And-
going? How do you know what a wild,
No,
crazy
he just
kid
shot
like that's
one.
going to do?
And the two guys that he did not shoot drugged their
Right,
friend
I remember
out.
hearing that.
They took him down the road a
Right.
ways, panicked, not knowing what
Right.
to do, left him in a field, went and got help, came back, and then he was dead by then. And consequently, the rest of the story played out.
Right.
But he gave them, plenty of warning.
I didn't know
Shouted
I did
to
not
them
know
that-
he did all that. That's
Absolutely.
interesting additional
At
information.
least that's what it said.
So why would to your point, Bob? I mean, if you're shouting a warning and he keeps coming,
and
take him out.
They had somehow they had inside information that he had withdrawn a couple $1,000s from the bank that day.
Ah.
And according to the article, one of the gentlemen of the 3 involved in the robberies' father worked at the bank. So
so they had inside information.
Somehow
They knew there was money there,
They knew there was
and
money
they were
there
after
because
it.
he had made a large withdrawal that day or the day before. So consequently,
I honestly don't know if I could ever shoot someone, even in that situation. I don't know.
But don't you remember, though, remember the kid that was crossing the guy's yard?
Yeah, that was over the top. That was ridiculous.
I mean, So,
That was
you
ridiculous.
Defending
know,
his property. he
it's
said.
like if you really stop and think about it, it's you know, I don't know.
Yeah.
One
It's,
last, I didn't mean to interrupt Don.
No, go ahead.
One last comment. It's been probably 6 or 7 months ago. Come home from work on a Sunday night. I was listening to either 55 KRC or WLW on the radio, and there was a couple guys doing a talk show for an hour on gun things, and one of them was from Ohio, and he taught concealed carry classes. The other guy was from Kentucky, and he taught concealed carry classes. So they were fielding questions from people that were calling in and talking about it. And I think it was the guy from Kentucky, and he said in his class, it's taken by both men and women frequently, and he says at the end of the class, he will not issue a permit to somebody taking his class if they are not willing to take whatever firearm they bring with them and point it at someone else in the class and pull the trigger.
Wow.
Without knowing, with knowing that it's empty, with
Right.
verifying that.
Right.
He said if they can't take an empty handgun in the presence of all these other people,
Right.
and point it at somebody else in the class and pull the trigger, he said then all they're going to do in a situation when a
Just
robber
panic.
attacks them, all they're going to be doing is giving that guy a loaded firearm because
They don't have the guts.
they don't have it within them to pull the trigger at somebody. So they're just going to be giving their attacker a loaded firearm. So he refuses to give them
That's interesting.
a concealed carry class.
That's
Whether right or
interesting.
wrong, but I just found that kind
Yeah, it is interesting.
of difficult to
Yeah.
grasp when I heard that.
That begs a very important question about how many people have ever had a gun pointed at them
Mm-hmm.
and shot at.
That
If you have a gun pointed at your head, you have a whole different perspective on gun laws, I'll tell you that.
tell me more.
I
Are
had
you
a gun
talking?
pointed at my head, and I was sitting at the card table one night, and I was mouthing off and playing cards and won a bunch of money, and the guy said, if you say one more thing, I'm going to kill you. And I was like, eh. And he had a gun the whole night waving it around. I didn't care. I was about 17 or 18 years old. He put it right to my head and pulled the trigger, and it was a starter's pistol. But it blew my ear.
You didn't
I still
know
can't
that.
hear to this day. Partly out of it, but I'll tell you that will. And I had another guy pull a gun on me one time in a situation, ran away. But once you've had a gun pulled on you, face to face with it, like he's talking about, it changes your whole perspective. And I guarantee, if you had to hold a gun to somebody and shoot them, I've never had to do that, but I've always kind of said, I don't know how opinionated people that shoot targets and animals I have very little respect for as far as their opinion about guns until you're faced with it, because it's not a gun issue, it's a life issue. It's how much do you value your own life? And I'm like, Derek, I'm not afraid of guns. It's the people that have them. I see some of these people carrying guns around. I'm like, that guy shouldn't have a gun. You know?
Right.
So.
Right. Does anybody believe that we could just leave it up to God to protect us in any dangerous situation and just not carry a gun and leave it up to God to provide divine protection for us?
I don't think.
I believe it more than carrying a gun.
I wear my seatbelt.
You know,
God
Mark,
can
I think
protect
in
me
a-
in a wreck, I guess, but I say trust God and keep your powder dry.
Mark Cahill, he brought up, remember Mark Cahill? Some of you guys went
Yeah.
to see Mark.
Yeah.
He made a comment one time, he was talking to a college campus one time speaking, and he asked him, he was talking about Columbine or something, I don't know, but he says, what can you do in a situation like that? What should you do in a situation like that? You know, if you were at the campus and you had this guy firing off rounds like that, and everybody stop, I do this, I do this, I do that, I rush the guy, I do this. He said, well, why wouldn't you just pray that the gun would get jammed or something like that? You could pray, but you don't think of that when when the whole thing's going on. But he said, just pray that the gun gets jammed, and then you jump on the guy. Look for the opportunity. But I don't know. What would you do?
I mean, if
You know, in a
you're in a
situation like
rack,
that.
do you just
I
pray
What if you were in that element? What if you were standing hook?
that the enemy's guns
And that was
jam?
going on.
Let me share
Little
this
girl,
with you
you got
guys,
that
just to
little girl
add
played
to your thought
About
process about
One
this
little girl
issue.
played dead.
In the World Magazine article, it lays out the mass shootings that have occurred since 1999 with the Columbine incident through 2012. If you look here very carefully, you'll see in 2012 there's been a dramatic increase in these shootings, a dramatic increase. So this problem is not lessening, it's worsening. Let me share it
The
real
next
quickly.
question I think I have is, what's happened that in these last 20 years we're shooting at each other all the
Oh,
time?
and information.
Is it opportunity? Is
It's
it
information.
shows? Is it anger? Is it drugs? Is it That's
information. You're right.
It's information.
It
I mean,
is.
50 years
It's
ago,
information.
when my sister was, we had a big abuse thing and all that in our city, and nobody knew about it. Kids getting abused. You just didn't know about it. Now, look at all the people in prison. I mean, it's just the same premise. People see.
Yeah, but you know when people are getting shot because
But I'm saying a 12 or 13-year-old kid sees somebody in Columbine, it plants
Yeah.
a seed, either
Right,
good
absolutely.
or bad. It plants a seed and said, you know what, you screw with me like that, I'll do the same. I mean,
Right.
that's what it breeds.
Well,
that
these
stuff.
people, most of them, kill themselves,
and they plan
but they,
on it.
they think it's their claim, their a moment of glory and fame. It's bizarre.
revenge,
I mean, it's you talk about Satan blinding the eyes of a human being, and like they said in here, that whatever they called it, evil. I forget the right word what they said, but yeah, I mean, Satan is at work in this whole thing. No question
Look how
about it.
much different we look at things, like the Sandy Hook
Chris.
deal. I have a different perspective because of that now. I mean, when it comes to shooting kids, we got to do something.
Yeah.
If I didn't know about that,
Yeah.
I wouldn't change.
Chris.
I was just saying, I mean, everything that I'm hearing when people are talking about the guns itself around the table and abroad, at the first board meeting, we had parents there just ranting and raving, we gotta have armed guards at the schools, we gotta have night patrol, day patrol, and I'm thinking, why not just send them to jail and we'll just educate them in the jailhouse? I mean, it's in everything that I've heard, and I understood the rage for something that innocent being violated in such a manner that nobody else could defend them because they were defenseless. And that's what they call a soft target. You look around and you find a soft target. If you're looking, to me, everything points toward a condition of emotion with the kids and what they're willing to do. It's not a matter of what weapon it is. I mean, how many people own knives? Everybody in the whole country's got kitchen knives. If it was easier to kill people at a faster rate with knives, you'd use knives. If it was easier to do the violence with the bomb, you'd use bombs. It's not a condition of the weapon,